And after using Vista for quite a bit, I started. I got Vista off that computer and started using XP Media Center Edition again because Vista just caused so many logistical problems. It was ridiculous. I mean, half of it has to do with third-party manufacturers not getting the drivers out on time. I think, and I think the best example of that is the NVIDIA stuff. I had an NVIDIA chipset. I feel your pain, Chris Pirillo. I feel your pain. Um, and I think one of the worst problems I had with Vista is that the minute I got Vista, my DVD drive that I had for like a year or two before Vista came out just suddenly stopped working completely. It was ridiculous. I had to go out and buy. I went online and bought 2 new drives, and they worked fine. They were some light scribe drives, which I still have now. The trays are a little weird, but they work. Yeah, it was really, really strange. But I had Vista on that computer for a while. And then I installed XP on a different hard drive, so I started using XP when I needed to, you know. And then, while I had Vista on there, I went to summer camp that year. It was 2007. I came back. Of course, when I leave, I turn my computer off, and I turn the power switch and the power supply off. I should have unplugged it, because when I came back, I turned the power switch in the back on. I turned the computer on. Pop! I heard a pop from inside, and then the computer shut off. It wasn't a very loud pop. It was like a fuse. It almost sounded like a fuse blowing or something. It was just like pop. But what did happen with it is that what I believe happened is a capacitor blew in the motherboard. It was an Asus motherboard. Since then, I do not trust Asus motherboards with my life. I went through like 3 of that model of a motherboard, and they all had problems. All of them had problems. It was just so disappointing. Then eventually I bought a BioStar motherboard as a recommendation by a friend. Thank you, Will. You are the man. And since then, it's a very, very basic, very unfancy motherboard, but it works, and that's all I cared about. It only has 2 SATA ports, and it's just limited. But I was using this as a media center computer, so, you know, originally it was a gaming computer. I made it a media center and a gaming computer. So, yeah. I'm proud of that. And by the way, this computer I'm talking about, I built. So, you know, I knew this computer pretty well when I was running Vista on it. I've been running Vista on the BioStar motherboard ever since, and I haven't had problems. Hardware-wise. Software-wise, I've had a few issues, but that's because, you know, legacy software plus a whole new software platform that Vista was comes with its own set of problems. I have not tried 7 on there yet, simply because I'm in college. All I have are laptops with me, because they're portable. But another thing is that I think 7's going to run beautifully on there. I mean, it's definitely about time that I get a new motherboard, a new processor, because I have a very old AMD. I have an old slot on my AMD motherboard. It's a 939 slot. Yeah. And it's running an AMD Athlon X2 2.4 gigahertz, which is still pretty good, I have to say. It still runs up to par today, and I also have 3 gigabytes of RAM. I have 2 512 Corsair sticks and 2 Patriot 1 gig sticks. I'm mixing brands of RAM, I know. I'm stupid, but, you know, it's all I could afford at the time. And I'm not going to spend money to change it, because it works just fine. I'm also running a 64-bit version of Vista because I have a 64-bit processor and I have more than 2 gigs of RAM, and I'd like to take advantage of that in some way. Yeah. Also, one finicky problem I had with Vista is when I had a MacBook Pro, I installed Vista on there, and of course, Apple hadn't updated Boot Camp yet, so I had problems with iSight drivers and things like that. The thing I wish is that Apple was a bit more punctual with releases like that. Like with Windows 7, they haven't released a Boot Camp update for it, but I'm not having problems with it on this brand new MacBook Pro. I'm having absolutely no issues. However, on some older hardware that I've tested 7 on, like the 15-inch MacBook Pro I used to have, that did have some odd issues with Windows 7 that were driver related. So hopefully Apple will fix that with the new Boot Camp update. And that's my experiences with Windows. Vista was pretty frustrating. Windows 7, I really don't have much experience with it so far. It's only been out a couple of days, but to me, it feels like Vista, but it doesn't have the bloat and the just the bogginess, if that's a word, of Vista. Vista felt slow and herky-jerky and beta-ish, and it was a very, very bloated and heavy operating system. 7 seems like a much lighter, I wouldn't say it's lightweight necessarily, but I would say that it's lighter weight. It's like the size that a Windows operating system, it's like the density that a Windows operating system should be at this point in time, I think. It's what Vista should have been all along. No question about it. Comparing the two, Vista looks like it was somewhere in between the transition from XP to something better. Vista is definitely comparable to XP, but it's also comparable to Vista, which means that it takes things from both that were good. At least that's my impression of it so far. And I would definitely recommend Windows 7 if you're thinking about getting it. If you're wary about it, I'd recommend it. I really would. But I would do your research first. Make sure your hardware is compatible, like your chipsets, especially your chipsets, things like that. If you have a Mac, make sure that if you have a Mac, I would wait until drivers come out. To tell you the truth, wait until the Boot Camp update comes out to get Windows 7. You can buy it now. Oh yeah, but I would wait until the Boot Camp drivers come out to install it. But yeah, that's my experience with Windows so far. But there is one other version of Windows I want to talk about. Windows for legacy PCs. I asked Chris Pirillo about this, and he said that he doesn't have much hope for legacy machines and just sticks with stuff that works. I would agree. Because legacy machines can be a pain in the ass to deal with. I mean, I have an old ThinkPad down here that I'm trying to revive. And I've revived it for the most part. You know, it's functional as what I want it to be functional for now. With, I'm dual booting Windows XP and Xubuntu on it. And it serves its purpose well. I'll give it that. But Windows for legacy PCs, I would recommend it actually. It's a pretty good operating system. It's based on Windows XP Embedded Edition, which, you know, was made for things like phone booths and ATMs. Although I'm not sure how safe your money would be in a Windows embedded ATM. Steer clear, folks. Yeah. But yeah, it works quite well. You may have some driver issues, but if you download special things that were made for Windows XP Embedded, like special drivers and things like that, then it should be fine. You know, for a very old machine, Windows XP Embedded could revive it into a functional computer. it's Windows XP. You know. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Windows so far. Windows 7 looks good, which means Windows is back on a stellar note, which I like to see very much. Yeah, there may be other videos on how I feel about different operating systems later. Now, don't be a stranger. Let me know your stories about Windows that you've had, good or bad. Hopefully bad, because they're more entertaining. But either way, let me know your experiences, how you feel about it. Video response, comment, whatever. But that's really it. Have a good one, everybody. Ciao.